Joel, pleasure to have you in here.
Yeah, no.
First of all, it's good to have you up on the Gold Coast. Hard to get people out of Sydney, but then we show them the Gold Coast and all of a sudden they don't want to go back. So this has been a pleasure having you here for a little bit. But have you enjoyed your couple of days up here and have you enjoyed it?
No, I've loved it. I love coming up here on the Gold Coast where I've spoken at Marshall's Church before.
Yeah.
And it's just a great ethos. Young church, a lot of engaged people.
Yeah.
People are awake up here. There's actually a lot of Victorians that have moved to Queensland after the disaster of COVID. So I just find that people are very happy here. The sun's out. I think that has an effect on people.
It does.
You know, most people in the West are probably deficient in vitamin D. So where they aren't deficient in vitamin D, you notice they're happier and healthier people.
The last time I had you here, we actually sat on a bit of a panel and I have done some rebranding, some refining. People have said you've done some soul searching, but I was like, no, I've just kind of, it took a bit of time to work out what I wanted to be. Now, the purpose of today's discussion with you is really that so many of people that run in your lane, the political commentary, and I fell into this lane as well, as everything is 30 seconds, you're in and out, you say a piece, it's a clip. The political commentary sphere is really like attention. How do we grab it? The currency is attention. And I wanted to take the opportunity today to slow it down, sit in a chair, relax. I've made us some coffee.
Thank you.
And I just wanted the opportunity for an audience who, if they might know you, but they might not know you, right?
Yeah.
So they know what you stand for. They know that they can trust you when it comes to how to vote stuff and the science or the nerd stuff when it comes to like political elections and all that. But I mean, I'd love to jump in today a little bit about like maybe your upbringing, why you do what you do. What do you think about men these days? And then we'll touch on some political stuff towards the back end. But let me start, man. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. Go back as deep or as far as you want, but touch on take me to like an 8-year-old Joel Jammal. What's that look like?
I'm glad you changed the seats for this discussion because
That's it.
It's a therapy seat. So
That's
it's
right.
Good. I like it. No, we were chatting about this yesterday, why this is needed, because there's so many people that are interviewers. And because they're always interviewing other people, it's very rare you pick up on the background story and what made them who they are. But that's actually critical, because if you want to make Australia great or, you know, get us back to our values, it's like, okay, well, you guys listen to these people, but why are they the way they are? And, you know, I think that I really appreciate the opportunity to do that with you because, I am very proud about it, but you won't catch me doing a segment to camera, Tucker Carlson style, saying, this is who I am and this is what made me who I am. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Totally.
So no, my if I was to boil it down to 3 big things that made me who I am, it's my God, my parents, and my school that I went to. God is at the center of everything. I've always been a Christian. My dad, from a very young age, has been teaching us we were baptized into the Orthodox Church in a Catholic church, but by an Orthodox priest. And so my dad he was Syrian Orthodox, and my mum was a Maronite Christian, and very strong faith places, a lot of persecution in the Middle East. So they're people that very much wear their religion on their sleeve. And so that's always been a core of our life. We've always read the Bible together. Some of my fondest memories with Dad were sitting on a beanbag around the fireplace with my brother, reading at least a few chapters each a night in front of our dad. And that actually gave us an edge on most kids our age, even from the age of like 6 or 7, on understanding the Bible. And, you know, people, I think with religion, they've kind of relegated it to, you know, you just got to be moral and whatever. It's like, no. It's actually everything. It's actually literally what politics is based on and everything. And so having that base allowed me to navigate the world. It gave me a compass whereby which I could navigate and understand where I am on the map and where I want to go. And it meant that I was able to shut out a lot of negative influences, drugs, less, you know, savory people. So I've really been given a good start with that. But my parents also did send me to a very significant school in my life, which was the full 13 years of my schooling was at a place called the King School from kindergarten to year 12. Now, this school's been around since like 1885. It's like Australia's oldest independent school. It's got a military uniform going back to, over 150 years ago. They're very much a proud school. It was named after the king that, they want to have leaders in Australia go out and actually be leaders in industry, in politics, in really political life and the life of Australia. And what made this school so unique and why it makes the list at all, because most people don't enjoy their schooling, is the amount of extracurricular stuff, opportunities that were thrown your way, whether it was public speaking. Public speaking is one of the biggest fears in society. Second to, I do believe, heights. Public speaking's number 2. And so it's like from kindergarten, we were forced to stand up in front of our class and give a speech. Didn't have to be on, the Magna Carta, but it was like, what's your favorite food? Start really easy. And so every week we would have to do a speech, and it built us up from a very young age to do that. By the time I was in year 2, year 3, I was starting to win poetry competitions. I'd memorize a speech with no cards and be able to do that, and also do public speaking where you write your speech. So I worked with my older sister. She was she was about 9 years older than me. So we had a great relationship in writing and working on speeches together, and that allowed me to really harness my public speaking skills specifically, not writing the speech, more delivering the speech and acting per se. And the school had a very heavy weight on musical studies as well, which is very much something which I think adds to someone's character and discipline. Being able to pick up an instrument means that you're better at maths, better at practice. You've got to turn up. And so I played the cello. I sang as well. I'd also played the guitar a little bit. But I stuck with the cello. I stuck with the singing throughout school. Later on, other opportunities got introduced as well, like leadership opportunities. In year 6, I was the school captain of my primary school. I think I was one of the first Middle Eastern school captains at King's. It was a very white school, which, by the way, I didn't even notice. It was just like, this is a time when I just was like, I'm an Australian, you know, and the Lebanese thing was like, whatever. Like, it was just sort of a thing that was in your background. It wasn't sort of, I am Lebanese. It's like, no, we're all Aussies. Like, and so as school captain, I was given a lot of opportunities to sharpen my skills with regards to talking to adults and moving on. When it came to high school, there are other opportunities that were, given to us. I loved playing rugby. I think at one point I was playing in a rugby a club. I was playing for my school as well, and I was playing for a reps team. Yeah, loved my rugby. And so I think that really helped with a bit of grit, and, you can't just be pushed over in rugby. You know how to tackle someone. You understand the male aggression and the enjoyment in that. Yeah. But also as we got older, there was other things that King's did that other schools didn't do, like the cadet corps. King's actually has the biggest cadet corps in Australia, which is strange because it's a school. It has when I was there, it had over 650 cadets, and they have full ranks. They have cadet under officers. You get taught how to march from other students that teach you. Yeah, wow. It's mandatory for 3 or 4 years. Then you can choose to go on to be a sergeant or a cadet under officer. The pinnacle of that is very much you all go to Singleton Army Range and you're stuck with 26 other kids. You've got a year 12 kid that's the cadet under officer. You've got a sergeant in year 11. You've got 3 corporals in year 10. You got a lance corporal, a medic, a signaller on the radio. Wow. So again, this isn't military, guys, but it's as close as you can get as a kid. Yeah. And it forces you, no teachers, by the way. So you'd be trekking for a day, no teachers, nowhere to be found. So you are the thin line between chaos and order. And so as a leader, you get to pick your leadership style. Do I want to be transparent? Do I want to be more dictatorial? Do I want to have a different style? And so at a young age, this puts you far ahead of a lot of your peers that are probably more concerned about, how can I win this chick over or that dude over or whatever. And so this education was really something I held in high regard, and I recognized that my parents wanted me to come out of a school sounding like I can string a sentence together. I can be a leader in my community, and whether it's my faith or be cultured with regards to learning other languages or an instrument, being able to project my voice, whether it's from the cadet corps or whether it's singing, understanding breath, how to pronounce your vowels, thanks to singing. And this is the Western education. This is what it actually used to be. King's just happens to be one of the last bastions that had it going through it. It's not to say that, some of my cousins got a bad education going to public schools, but what education used to be was this. This is just one of the last fortresses of it. And so I considered myself incredibly blessed, privileged to go through it. And, my parents, sacrificed a lot for me to go there. There were times where they couldn't keep up with the school fees. So it wasn't lost on me, the importance of, not just rocking up and going through the motions. There are a lot of kids that did that, and it was no guarantee of success. A lot of kids, they become druggos and they never got their life together, and some of them are dead even. It's like it's not a guarantee of success. But I do hold that schooling in high regard. And I guess the last thing I'll say about King's is they had this great program under Dr. Timothy Hawkes. He was our headmaster for the whole time that we were there. He instituted this thing called the Boys to Men program. So he restructured the whole of Year 10 so that the first 3 terms were your curriculum for Year 10, and the last term, the whole term, was this Boys to Men program. He felt that there was a gap.
Sounds incredible.
Where kids, they left school, they didn't understand how to iron a shirt, how to maintain their car, check the oil, how to do their taxes, how to write a resume, how to do a barbecue. It's like how is it that we are sending our kids to school and they come out ill-equipped, yet we're spending more, $20 billion more than we used to historically, but our marks are going down. So this was a revolutionary program that he instituted, and it very much gave us the opportunity to have those skills. So I'm coming out now being able to iron a shirt better than my sisters. I'm understanding how to put a barbecue together, how to marinate chicken, how to, maintain a car, change a wheel really easily, what it's like when you're driving and you immediately put your feet on the brake, how slow it takes the car to stop, all sorts of things. And so how to write a resume. I mean, these are critical things, how to hold yourself in an interview, how to negotiate your wage, how to do your taxes. These are skills we're not taught in school. What's the point in school if you're not doing these things? And so that was a very critical chapter in my life. I really did value it. And between that and university was just substandard.
You went to uni, how long?
I did for just 3 years, a Bachelor of Property Economics at UTS. Don't get me wrong, I learned a lot. It taught me a lot about me being the driving factor in my education, but I just was underwhelmed by the so-called adults around me not having their life together. And again, I'm not a perfect guy, but like the universities are so substandard when it comes to people actually, getting the skills that they need to go into the workforce. Even businesses. I mean, I'm sure you'd see it in your own business. Someone might come out from the architectural degree, 5 years, and you want them to draft a plan or whatever. You basically have to help them unlearn what they learnt in university and then reteach them everything that they should know. So we've got a real substandard education system in Australia with the universities and the schools. And so and again, I wasn't like a star student. I was just, taking up the opportunities that were thrown my way thanks to the opportunities my parents provided me. But yeah, university.
What year were you going through university?
From year 2016 to 2018.
And this is in Sydney?
Yeah.
What was the because we know what universities are like now. Was there agendas being pushed through universities back then? Was it lopsided, left or right politically?
Yeah, it was
how did it feel? What was university like? It's only gotten worse, right? But what was it like back then?
Well, there's no university culture at all in Australia, zero. There's not many kids that board at universities. Maybe that's partly why. The lecturers, it's just like almost like a doctor. You just rock up and then they prescribe you a medication and then they send you off. It's like next. There's no connection and love and sort of working together. And again, I'm not talking about having your hand held. I'm talking about it being a center of inquiring about the issues, being fascinated
Like
by
wrestling
the
out
ideas,
ideas and
wrestling
growing.
it out.
Yeah.
Where's your debate culture? Where is this sort of?
So none of
like-
that really.
No, it's meant to be the hub of intellectual curiosity and debate and the cutting edge of these political discussions. And it was more prescriptive rather than, being actual, inquisitive.
I did hear you've just touched on something. You've just reminded me. I heard a rumor about your graduation story. Did you graduate or didn't graduate, or what happened with your graduation? There was something about it that was.
Yeah.
Tell me that story.
So at the end of my schooling, I had my final exam. I think it was a property tax exam, and I was handed a pink piece of paper.
That's right. It was you? Yeah.
And it was basically saying, do you want your test results? And then you turn it over. I've still got this paper. And on the back it said, go to this website on our UTS, website saying, you got to complete the mandatory sexual consent course.
Right.
And I'm like, hang on, what? And so I looked into it. It was basically how to teach men not to rape, how to ask women for consent when engaging sexually. I'm just reading it. I'm like, am I like a sex offender that needs training? Or like, if you get done for driving over the limit alcoholically, sometimes the judge will prescribe you a course to be a better driver, and then you can drive in 6 months.
If you've done the crime.
If you've done the crime.
Yeah.
I'm like, I haven't done I'm just a virgin looking at this. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, this is ridiculous. So they were withholding my test results, and this was my last term. The UTS was the first university to bring this in. And so I was basically looking at this and just like, well, I'm not going to do it. And I asked all the people around me, and they're like, they're going to do it just to get by. And I was like, is someone going to say no and make a point morally?
How old are you at this point?
So I'm 19.
This is the early stages of Joel Jammal.
Yeah.
Of Joel Jammal activism and standing for truth.
That's right. Yeah.
It's an important part of your life. Keep going.
No, yeah. So look, so 21 specifically is when I was handed this thing, and I'm just looking at it and I'm saying, I'm not doing it. I'm on the phone with the university. I'm saying, hey, I'm graduating, whether you like it or not. You have no right. It's not in my contract. They said, oh, but you got to complete all the obligations and this and that. And I said, no, hang on a sec. I'm not a sex offender. I'm not a sex offender. I'm a virgin, for God's sake.
Yeah.
I've never touched anyone inappropriately in that way. And you implying that I need to do training is insulting. And no one else is standing up to this, so I will. And they said, well, they went because no one pushed back.
So how many students were there at the time? That gone through?
I mean, easy to find out, but it was at least 40 to 50,000 students.
Right. How many pushed back?
None that I know of. There was
One.
One.
You pushed back.
So I was the one.
Okay.
Maybe there's some I didn't know about, but I was asking all my guys and gals in my unit. There was 200. I'm not even sure that the girls had to complete it either. But anyways, I basically said no. They came back eventually and said, all right, since it's your last semester, we'll let you just go on.
Okay. So you won.
Cut a deal. They cut a deal. It was a bluff. It was a bluff. And I was like, so it's not a rigid rule. I was like, so it's not a rigid rule. You were bluffing. And so I said, well, I'll be back for my master's and I'll be challenging it basically because no one else is apparently.
Yeah.
So I tweeted about it and it reached 250,000 people on the tweet. It's my first big tweet. And that's what basically after that, my Twitter was censored for 4 years. After that, and I never got that kind of reach again. It was all like, you'd be like if you got 3 likes. So they manually, under the previous owners, manually did something to my account. I could see. But I connected with a whole bunch of people as a result of that. Claire Lehman, who runs Quillette magazine. I connected with a number of other people like Dr. Stephen Shavura, former Deputy Prime Minister John Anderson, who was, he had his show. He was one of the early pioneers online in Australia, and he actually used to go to my school actually, and we caught up and we had coffee and we talked about things and he opened some doors, which was helpful, but it was very clear to me that I was going to be on my own with this, and I just had to get on with it, get my degree, get graduated, get into the workforce.
Did you you mentioned your sister who's 9 years older than you. Have you got brothers? Tell me a bit about your brothers.
Yeah, I got a younger brother. We went to the same school. He kicked butt. He was more of a mathematical mind. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did very well. We're like a cookie cutter. We're the same dude.
I'm doing a series at the moment It's probably already out now for those who haven't seen it by the time this one gets aired. And one of it is The War on Men. It's funny just talking about the certain things that have worked for you. Like the biggest issue with the start of a man's life right now, The War on Men is actually fatherless homes. And just you know, specifically saying, you know, how your father would sit there and read a chapter of the Bible each night to you. We do communion together at home, but fatherless homes. And the opposite, and seeing what you're doing now, we share the fact that we've both lost our father, but I'll say he'd be very proud of what you're doing. I'd like to think he's proud of me as well.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know that about you, actually.
You didn't?
No. This is why someone's going to do it for you as well.
That's right. I lost. Yeah, it's a whole other story. But I lost my dad in 2017. I actually lost my dad before I did anything like what. But I wasn't even in business then. So who I am right now is all the things I used to say I'm going to do. And he used to make a joke about, yeah, I'm gonna, right? Yeah. Mucking around, always encouraging, a great dad, right? And I always look back now, it's one of the things that really bothers me that I lost him, you know, he was only 64. That is, I'm like, he actually didn't get to see me really step into like leadership as a man, taking a stand, because he was like black or white. It's one thing that was great about my dad lying to him was like the biggest sin. You lie. It's like, so it's, that's my biggest frustration with losing him young. You went from, that's another story from the time, you went from university into the workforce. I know when it's starting to lean into now when it's in the workforce and COVID happens and all that, but what were you doing for work? What did you end up doing straight after uni?
Well, you know, throughout school, I was actually working on the construction site with Dad this whole time. So I'm working with my hands.
What was your dad doing? What did he do?
Well, he was, he came to Australia when he was 4 and he was working with his hands, bricklaying. He did every trade on the site to the point that he eventually became a builder, working with his brothers. He had 5 brothers, so it's like, you know, all working on the trades.
Was that the name of the company, 5 Brothers?
5 Brothers? No. It was 5 eyebrows. So
okay.
Not 10. No, so they basically all picked up different trades, but eventually, as they got older, some became architects, engineers, builders, and developers. And Dad became a developer. He had some building projects eventually when we saw a bit of a downturn. It's great to do building in a downturn versus a developer. And because you always need good builders. And he ended up basically, there was a lot of opportunities during school to do work experience on site, which I did with him. And, you know, it was a great opportunity in the summer to make some cash rather than be stuck at home playing video games. And me and my brother loved doing that. We did it with some of our cousins. It was just the best vibe, best years, some of the best years of my life doing that. There's a simplicity to working with your hands that men can appreciate. And I think that being on the construction site really helped with that and teaches you a lot of things, negotiation, managing relationships. Great. It puts you around certain unsavory characters, so it allows you to develop and sharpen those skills and get the job done, the objectives done. And so, yeah, no, I did work while I'm at uni as well also.
Okay.
So by the time I got to my white collar job, I'd done 9 years of experience on construction sites.
So just to catch up, the people who are watching going, hang on, this guy, Joel Jammal, who runs Turning Point Australia and who talks on camera, so far you sang in choirs, you did speeches as a kid, you played the cello, read the Bible, and now you're in the construction with your dad who's a builder and the 4 uncles who do it. So you end up in construction. Now this is where we get into who made Joel Jammal, the man we see today, 28-year-old. Amazing work, so by the way, for how young you are.
Thank you.
There's almost a part of me that's like, oh my gosh, like he is so far along the journey for the age. It's actually incredible, by the way. So COVID comes, and this is where I'll let you share for people who don't know you.
Yeah.
It was a turning point for a lot of people, right? Because all of a sudden they face, but not everyone actually said, I'm going to do something. Yeah. Not everyone can be that person, but why don't you share a little bit, hey, what happened to you in COVID that leads you to where you are now?
Yeah, no, so I to connect it to COVID, I finished my degree. I got to, took a couple of tertiary jobs up. One of them was a mortgage broker. Wasn't for me. Couple months. I moved out of house early. Normally you don't move out in my family until you get married, but I moved out early to stupidly chase a girl and also pursue a totally different career path in mortgage broking. Didn't work out. So early to mid 2019, my dad urged me to come back home, get the train back on track. And I did. I took up I was an assistant development manager for a construction company for a year until mid-2020 when we had the lockdowns for a few months. My business, I was tendering for a lot of projects where you submit an offer. For those that are listening, we submit an offer for a construction project. I was working for a construction and development company, so we'd be tendering for government contracts and all these other private developer contracts. Mate, we did something crazy like 20 tenders in 3 months. It was insane. Now, one tender takes you about 3 months. So the idea that me and this other guy, Antonius, managed to do that, and I'm comfortable talking about that company because they're out of business now, but we worked really hard. We didn't get a single tender. Not one.
Yeah.
Because the government it's not because they were an inefficient company, a bad track record or whatever. They're actually one of the most efficient construction companies I'd been in, and the quality was great. And so the idea that they weren't winning these contracts told me we were at a black swan event. And the COVID, what it did to the banks was it scared the banks, the money. It tightened up funding, so developers couldn't get their pre-approvals with loans and whatever. So every single tender was useless, all that work. So being on the front end of construction in that sense, I was canary in the coal mine. And I was monitoring all this politics because I'd been following politics for 5 or 6 years by that point. I knew where it was going.
Right.
And so these things were all bubbling simultaneously in the background. And so when I lost my job, I'd actually already started filming for 2 or 3 weeks. That window had been open before the door was shut. And I was grateful in a way. I was excited about where things were going. I knew God had me and his timing was perfect. And I started to lean more into the political commentary. And in my first 4 weeks, I started a podcast called the Ark Podcast, Ark with a C, with a guy called Ricardo Bossi back when he was a bit more of a statesman. He didn't really swear on camera at that time. And in 4 weeks, we had accrued 500,000 views with nothing but iPhones and my, editing on iMovie. And
Amazing.
It was like, okay, there's clearly a market.
Yeah.
And our last episode, the fourth episode we did was the Great Reset. This was at the cutting edge of all of that. And COVID, and we obviously had the lockdowns. And 4 weeks into the show, unfortunately, my dad's 5-year cancer battle was lost. He was fighting cancer and he was getting blood treatment in Mexico. And unfortunately, that was working, but when the lockdowns came in, it meant he couldn't get out of the country to get that treatment.
Of course.
And so that meant that essentially the government policy killed him. And I remember before he passed, he just gave me, and speaking to what happened with yourself and your father, he was just said one thing to me, one line. He's like, this totally random. He says, Joel, because he was at home with us, this thing you're doing with the show, I think it might actually work. I think you've actually. And everyone needs a different level of encouragement to do what they need to do. And God will give you only what you need to do the job.
Yeah.
So God knows your heart better than you know it yourself. That's scripture. He knows what drives you better than you know. You might think you do, but you don't. And God has a funny way of dangling the carrot just enough to know what's going to stir you to do that step and do his purpose. That was that line with my dad. Within a few days, he then passed.
It's enough to fuel you forever.
And then it was like he held on until he'd been like, all right, done. Now you can go, Joseph.
Did you, thanks for sharing that, by the way.
Oh, I think that's partly what's happening with you.
Yeah. Did you, so was your dad in palliative care at home? That's that kind of what was the situation?
Yeah, it was palliative care in the hospital, and we got him out at home because
at home. It's very similar.
To see him otherwise.
Same as us. We had him at home. Quite an odd feeling, isn't it? I don't know. I had no idea we'd end up in this discussion, but it's great because it shows who you are and who I am as well. Did you find that seeing your father and like literally watching them die? I'm probably the same for me. I watched Dad take his last breath. It was quite a surreal feeling when you have a faith. Very, very weird feeling. And, my dad gave his life to Christ about 6 days before that, so he's sitting there watching. He grew up amazing morals and lived a good life, and he was very he was a leader in his own right. He was just a really solid person, and but never followed Christ. We just grew up and was never around it, right? But then when I gave my life, he watched me for a couple of years, and he's sitting there in his bed at home and talking to myself and my best friend, who was a Christian as well, and who actually brought me to the church. His name's Grant. He's a pastor over in America now. And he's looking at these two young guys he's kind of thinking, if they hadn't have done what they're doing, I don't know where they would have ended up. I know where Grant probably would have ended up. I don't know where I would have ended up, right? There's always something in our flesh that was, and he's looking at us, and he reminded me of a story that he grew up when he was in the police force, and he said, we had a couple of these guys in the police force with him. This was like in the territory in the 80s. And he said, and there's about 4 or 5 of them, and they were the worst. They were coppers, but they were the worst. And he would call it two-timing. They'd be out there two-timing on their wives, right? Cheating on their wives. They were drinkers, gamblers. They always hung out together, and that's all they did was everything you shouldn't do. He said, and one day this tent revival came through town, right, through the territory. And he said, they went to it. And then from that night, he said, they never went back to their old ways. And Dad always watched that. He's like these 4 or 5 coppers. And he said, I used to see them on Facebook 40 years later, right? And they're still following Jesus. And he said, the only way those blokes could have changed if there was something real. And he remembered that forever. So on his last couple of days, he's sitting there in bed and he just says to me and my mate, I actually called my mate and said, I need you to come around. I feel like Dad wants to give his life to Christ today. And I was so new to faith, I didn't know how to do that. I was like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
But come around and help me, right? And so he comes around, and then even when Dad's sitting there, he says, I want to know Jesus. And then I'm like, okay. And then we both kind of went blank. Like Grant had walked a million people, not a million, but hundreds of people to Christ, right? And I'm like, what do we do again? Like,
where to start?
Oh my gosh, it was so funny.
No pressure.
Even Grant was feeling the weight because he was like, oh, this is the guy I've grown up with around the corner. He's coming to Christ. This is insane.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And he did that. The reason I want to come back to, there's almost a Donald Trump weave, right? I want to come back to the start of that, right?
Sounds like my grandfather's story, but yeah, go on.
Is that when Dad passed, and then I sat in the room with him. I have 3 sisters, Mum, we all sat there. I'm holding his hand for a while. Once he's passed, I'm holding his hand. We're there for about half an hour. We go out of the room, and then I decided to come back into the bedroom where Dad is lying still, but past, waiting for the ambulance to come. And I go to grab his hand again, and it is a clear distinction of like, oh man, it's nothing here. And it actually did wonders for my faith, because I'm like, and even my sisters walked in, and they're not Christians or anything like that. They walked in, they go, it just feels different. I'm like, oh, his spirit's gone. Like, it was a wild feeling. And it actually made me not sad. Even when we thought, oh, this is going to be really sad when they take the body out, it wasn't, because I'm like, it's just that's just the vessel. That's not Dad. I don't know if you had a similar experience, but it did wonders for my faith to go. I found so much comfort in like, oh man, his spirit's gone. It was a wild thing for me. And it set my next couple of years on fire, unwavering in the way I wanted to do things and what I believed in. It sounded like those last few words from your dad did the same thing. Did you want to add anything about your grandfather? Yeah, share it.
No, I mean, I don't know the full story. My mum probably knows it better, but my father recalled to me that with his father, he came late to the party on Jesus. Like, he was a cultural Christian, but really did take it seriously in the last days. He was in hospital actually, and yeah, Dad was obviously quite good on the spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
Because he started the Sydney Institute for Christian Studies and taught a lot on it. And I remember in 2011, with his own father, he did preach to him, and in the last days he did give his life. And I think there's a story in there, which I don't know the full details, but I do believe my grandfather saw Jesus in the last days as he got closer to death.
Wow.
He was sitting one time in the courtyard of Westmead Hospital in his wheelchair, and he looked up, something along those lines.
Wow.
But anyways, with my own dad, the day he passed, the night before, it was 1 a.m. in the morning. I'm in the big bathroom there having a shower, And obviously there's a lot going on at this time. I'm thinking about a lot of things, the podcast and whatever, and I'm thinking, it'd been a long time he'd been at home with us and we were expecting him to go. But I'm in the shower and I hadn't listened to Jordan Peterson for like 6 months. And a thought came to mind, Jordan Peterson's video about, the mark of a man is to be the strongest person at your father's funeral, carrying the burden in that time of tragedy. And I was thinking in the shower, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready for Dad to go now. And 4 hours later, he did die. I went to my room. I watched the Jordan Peterson video. I hadn't searched for a while and listened to it. And then 3 or 4 hours later, Mum calls out, Joel. I was meant to be going to boot camp an hour later. Mum calls out, I ran downstairs quickly as I could. I start trying to do CPR on Dad, and she said, stop. He said he didn't want it. He said, if that happens, just let me go. It's not easy doing CPR on your dad, even briefly. And then you hear that final death croak, and you're like,
It's a real thing, hey?
it's up to me now. Yeah, you realise. And so it was difficult to mourn during COVID because you could only have a certain amount of people at your house, but we didn't give a stuff. The police, if they tried anything, it would have been a bad time for them. But you could only have 25 people at your house maximum. And the church that Dad helped build, St. Mary's in Western Sydney, there was a lot of churches he helped build. He did the brickwork there, I think, for free. And they, as well, were only allowed one person every 4 square metres, some bull crap like that. Church stood up, did nothing. The church just nothing.
Common story we've seen.
And Dad literally helped build the place. And it's just like, I'm just seething. I'm just thinking, bloody government, bloody churches have dropped the ball, bloody statesmen have let us down. Where is the Tony Abbotts? Where's the John Andersons that went to my school? Where is the John Howards that had accrued 40 years of political capital? They failed me. They failed my little audience at the time because I wasn't the only one. I'm just one of many stories.
Yeah.
They've failed everyone and no one's coming to save you. Now Dad's dead. Half my siblings and their partners lost 8 jobs between them, including me. Redundant, time reduced, or they've just totally lost the job. And I'm like, we are at a black swan event in Australia's history. The churches weren't even closed during the wars, but they were closed for the first time ever in Sydney. And I just realised you've got to step up. You are the guy you're waiting for. Because when I reflected on it, by this time I'd been out of school. I felt that my school prepared me for a world that didn't exist anymore. And that meant he who much has been given, much will be expected. So you have to stand up. So I doubled down. I was only 4 weeks into my show. 4 weeks. And so I kept going. It really hit a high point with the town hall speech in mid-2021 where I really called out the government. They tried to throw me in jail for 6 months for giving that speech, just saying, end the lockdowns, no vaccine mandates, no vaccine passports, and we want an answer on ivermectin. We were right on all those things. They still came after me. But it's the same bone there. They bluffed. They said, we'll throw you in jail for 6 months. I'm like, do it. I've been to hell. I've lost my job. I've lost my dad. My life's in ruins. Do it. They didn't. They folded.
On what grounds were they trying to? Just so anyone who's out there this is a time for. I do a lot of videos and stuff specifically talking about the call of men. I don't touch much on the call of women. There's plenty of great women leaders who do that, but talking about the character of men to stand up, have a backbone, man, find a hill, die on it, start with truth. So before we get into stuff like that, men need to know if they are going to out there and, like we're talking earlier about Chalky and Sam Bamford and those guys who are, what do men need to know that they're up against? When you say, I said a speech and they threatened to throw me in jail, just explain briefly kind of what that looked like and how it didn't happen So men aren't turned off before we even get them to start standing up, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to see the speech, if you search Joel Jammal Town Hall Speech, Sydney, 24th of July 2021, you'll see during the height of COVID in Sydney, we were in the middle of a lockdown. They just closed the construction sites. First jab vaccination was about 33%. And I could see what they were doing. They were bottlenecking everyone and trying to cudgel us all into the vaccine.
Yeah.
Because they had a lot of people in government that were getting very rich off the vaccines. And so the TGA were trying to push this through, and there was clearly alternatives out there like ivermectin, and the lockdowns weren't working. We needed vitamin D to actually fight the virus because we were all locked in our homes. We weren't getting into the sun. So very clearly the science was very open to being reinterpreted depending on who was paying them. And so we were at a protest. This all boiled into a big protest across the nation.
Yeah.
At Town Hall, there was 50,000 people that rocked up and were marching through. And I was a journalist. I was there in my capacity as a journalist, but I was asked by the police while I was there, because they noticed people were listening to me, respecting me, slowing down when I said, but I wasn't the organizer. And they approached me and said, turn your camera off. We've got a situation on our hands. We are going to charge you, but we do have a situation on our hands. We need you to help us to get this to Town Hall and then send it home, basically. And I'm like, yeah, like people are getting hurt. Of course, you know. And the organizer, Brodie, who was meant to be there, he wasn't there. We didn't know that he was intimidated by the police the night before to withdraw the protest permit. And so we got to Town Hall steps. I said to the police, you need to let me speak to them. Otherwise, they're going to keep marching through the city, and like someone has to articulate why they are upset.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're going to feel like they haven't been heard. And, you know, I did that. It went on all the mainstream corporate media. It was the first big time that I'd gotten out there in that way. And people were like, yeah, that's what we believe. What did the government do in response? They created a strike force to hunt down the organisers and everyone that attended there. There were 10,000 reports made to Crime Stoppers. Aussies snitched on their fellow Aussies that were in pain. Yeah. And no one was being the voice at the time. And so this just grew my following incredibly, because it was like this dude, this young dude standing on the steps is saying, my dad was just killed. My job was taken from me. I can't go back to construction and do my job. And so can many others. They were doing targeted lockdowns in Western Sydney in a lot of these areas that were struggling right now. People were killing themselves. Suicide was up. People couldn't feed their kids because their husbands couldn't go to work. Everyone had been using up all their leave. And I was like, hey, we're in pain. Can you help us? And we got demonized. And everyone, I'm not special in that. Everyone had their own story. And so going back to the question, I just think that there was a crisis of courage, but I stood there, was willing to get the threatened by that legally and fight it. You know, it cost me 30 grand legally to fight, but we won in court. They folded.
So they pressed charges.
They did.
And then you just got a legal defense together. You fought it.
Yeah.
And you won.
It was all a bluff, and we saw this with the fines in Melbourne and Sydney. 90% of the fines weren't paid because it turns out most people were like, I actually don't have to pay it.
And most of them got refunded too.
And the problem is it's a bluff. You know, in poker, you know, you might fold before you test the cards and show your cards. That's you resigning, surrendering. But if you actually take it to the court, the judge has to stand there, look at the laws on the books and say, is the government actually correct in this? Have the police gone too far? Are they correct in charging Joel with incitement to violence? And it turns out I wasn't. Turns out I didn't. Turns out I was well within my right to be there, especially as a journalist. Yeah. And it basically revealed, a bit like in Shawshank Redemption when he's escaped his cell, there's that poster covering the hole where he just dug out of. When you poke your hand through the poster, you realize, oh, this is actually not a wall. This is a hole. And they've been bluffing to us. They can't do that again after that. And that really makes you like really lights a fire in you, and you realize we are dealing with bad faith actors that are trying to manipulate our behavior and trying to get our consent to do things that are against our interests. So to the men out there listening, you should be bold as lions. You should not curb what you're saying. You should not sugarcoat it. You should not comply. You have no idea how weak these people are. Their laws, their, embellishing of the facts or this or that to manipulate you with statistics. Oh, this many people have done the jabs and this and that. Yeah, but how many people opted out of it? You've taken that out of the percentage. It was all manipulation. And when you realize that, they can't do it again.
You now, since then, you've been heading up Turning Point Australia. How are you in the wake of, obviously, the Charlie Kirk assassination? I was watching that morning, went and got my wife up as it happened. It was horrific. I noticed you kind of went black on socials for a couple of days, understandably. How are you feeling now, 40, 50 odd days after? What's the movement within? We'll get to the plans for Turning Point Australia, but how are you feeling after that?
Yeah, no, it wasn't an easy 24 hours after that. I was not able to get on camera. And again, I with my own dad's funeral, I didn't crack a tear the whole time. I was like, I've got to do my duty. I've got to get through this and whatever. I don't know why it was so different. I'm still trying to understand why it was different with Charlie. I think it was how evil it was taken. It was such a, I was ready for dad to be taken. I literally gave him my consent the night before, like, okay, it's time. But with Charlie, it was so sudden, graphic for everyone to see in this modern age, but also so evil.
It was so rich in injustice is what I had the same feeling comparing to almost felt guilty. I'm like, I feel worse now than when I lost dad, right? And I don't know Charlie.
It's bizarre.
But it's the injustice of it and how graphic it was and what it meant for, there's a lot of people around the world with, respectfully, have their head in the sand. And to anyone who's awake and watching or politically motivated on either side, this was horrific, horrific.
Yeah.
And it didn't touch a lot of people who aren't engaged. It actually it exposed the real lack of humanism in people. Like, it was mind-blowing, let alone the people who celebrated it, right? So you spent the first day, you didn't go on camera, you kept it quiet. What happened inside of you after you, because this is a direct attack on someone like you, like anyone like me, anyone who wants to have a voice like that bullet was like for the movement.
Yeah.
It was very, very obvious and very evil. And if you throw the spiritual side in there as well, this was a real attack. How do you feel in the aftermath of it now?
Yeah, look, 50 days now after it, I'm just still unsettled by it. I still get a little bit emotional thinking about Charlie when certain things come up. I just think that what happened to him, it reeks of an enormous evil behind it that needs to be confronted. And when I look at what's going on with Turning Point in Australia, it definitely lit a fire under a lot of people. It put us on the map. It broke a whole bunch of algorithmic barriers.
Which is amazing.
Which is good, but it's like, okay, cool, but now you've got to get on with the mission and actually honor the man by, sacrifice, I guess, that he did. And so that's an enormous burden. We are doing very well right now in terms of the organizational setup, making sure we build our permanent infrastructure, laying our plans out for the next 5 years, establishing chapters in other countries like New Zealand, really looking at that. But yeah, no, we were going to bring Charlie out on tour next year. So it's very difficult to readjust the plans when the plans were shot. It's like we were going to bring him out to really light a fire under a lot of Aussies, but a lot of New Zealanders as well. And so, to have that sort of happen, not just that as an issue, we just missed the guy. I mean, Charlie was he was probably one of the closest people. There aren't many people I look up to nowadays. COVID will do that to you. It was a real litmus test to assess who's really made of the tough stuff. There are a lot of guys that really let us down, but Charlie didn't. Charlie was one of the people that pushed against the jabs really early on. He's someone unapologetic of his faith. He was the best embodiment of our values. and he was the best of us. He wasn't meant to be the one that got the shot.
Yeah.
And so he was probably one of the closest people that, for me, it would have been really helpful to me to hear. I would have actually really listened to what he said.
Yeah.
You know, I don't listen to most people's compliments or hate comments. There was a great quote by Dennis Prager where he said, you know, if people's compliments go to your heart, then if people's compliments go to your head, their insults will go to your heart. So I sort of shut out both. But there are people out there, people like Nigel Farage and people like your dad, where they say things and they actually do go to your heart. You actually listen to them for whatever reason. And Charlie would have been one of those people. We never got to properly sit down in person and have a chat in that way. It was all across Zoom. So he would have been a real guy that would have been, I reckon, encouraged me and what I was, you know, doing, given me some advice. I don't listen to most people because I don't respect most people. It's the same with church. Like I just cannot go to a church where I don't respect the pastor. It's not possible. Yeah. If the pastor was not as bold as a lion during COVID, I'm sorry, I cannot respect them as my spiritual teacher. And so losing Charlie was one of the few people on this earth I actually would have listened to. And it would have been great to share that with Australia. And so, no, look, but I'm very encouraged. Australia, the Turning Point following online has grown to 600,000.
Yeah.
We just launched our South Australian chapter of Turning Point with George Mammalis of the Adelaide set.
They've got great content, by the way.
Yeah, no, yes. So you've seen it, and he's accrued, you know, hundreds of millions. If not, I think he's pushing 1 billion views right now, and you know that South Australian election in 5 months is a big one. And we're going to start state chapters in Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, WA, Tasmania, the territories.
Bit of work to do in Victoria, mate.
Just a little bit.
When was the last time you were in Victoria?
You know, it might have been their last election. It might have been. I really don't like going down there. It's quite a demonic place. I always get sick when I go down there. But I think it might have been late 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is an interesting place. We were there not long ago. Definitely feel the shift in the atmosphere. Not to over spiritualize it, but it's literally a spiritual thing, right? For those watching who don't understand that, you feel it. You know, I feel that a little bit about the Central Coast. Not to hate on the Central Coast, but there is certain areas that have you know, just a darkness over it, or just a feeling of like unrest. We noticed in Melbourne, but I also was like, it's such a shame. It has the potential to be, you know, the greatest city in Australia. It does, because the money that's there, the people that are there, the government is horrible. Obviously, it's what ruins it. And there's a lot of lost and confused and really progressive and woke ideologies, but it's got all the infrastructure to do amazing work. But to see a Turning Point chapter down there, it would be interesting to see the turnaround they could have and how long it might take or not take. But there'd be a bit of work to do in Victoria. What's your kind of order, or you don't have to expose the strategy, but maybe what's the plans? Because there will be people watching who will want to get involved. We chatted about this last night, that we kind of said, look, even when people want to get involved, there's so many fronts, right, in politics. You actually can't take them all on at once yourself. You need to get behind an organisation that can work as a machine. And so that's why there is an encouragement. Sure, people go start a show like this, do your thing, right? But ultimately, there's a reason people who organise, like unions, you need to organise and be strategic to actually have impact. And so Turning Point, shown by the work that Charlie Kirk and their whole team has done. I mean, it's not an over-exaggeration. Donald Trump is in office, which I'm thankful for, on the back of a lot of the work that Charlie did. We've spoken about this, right? So what's your kind of plan with the chapters and your vision you see for it over the next 10 years? Like, are you hopeful, or are you...
No, I am. Yeah, I wouldn't be wasting my time otherwise.
Good.
There's a lot of opportunities for a young guy to travel anywhere and do anything they want and take their family and, you know, do what they want to do. But I'm here because I recognise there's a inflection point we're at. There is a way and a path through this I can see, and that requires us to apply ourselves with the skills that we've developed over our lives. And so when I look at South Australia as a test case for Turning Point state chapters, what does it look like? Engaging in the election in 6 months.
Yeah.
It means informing, educating, people out the political system, how they can breathe their values into politics as Christians, as conservatives, as nationalists, how they can actually hold the politicians accountable no matter which party. It's about being loyal to your values, allowing people to have the tools at the election to actually breathe their values into the politics. George will also be going to the universities. He'll be starting to hold Charlie Kirk-style events at those universities. And so it's about setting the tone right with that. George is a lion. Like he's Greek
very
Orthodox.
Sharp.
Yeah, no, he's a sharp cookie. He's a sharp cookie, and he's
great
he's just
demeanor,
recently,
great. He's very palatable to watch. Like I was watching him last night after we spoke about it a few times, and I was like, yeah, he's a great fit. Keep going. So, yep.
Well, what we look for in a person like George, and he is great to start the tone, is it's someone that can be, one, loyal to their values, know who they are, not loyal to a political party, to someone that actually is articulate and can speak to the spirit of that audience, whether it's like the audience of Adelaide, South Australia. That's what George has been demonstrated an ability to do. But also someone that can be effective in getting the job done, good work ethic, not all over the place, with things, have their life together. He just recently got married, actually. He's on his honeymoon.
Amazing.
But that's what we need out of a Victorian or any other state chapter leader. And the chapter leaders are basically to make sure that they can take the load off for me, because there are a lot of things that it's like the chain of command in the military. You want to delegate. You want to be like, all right, that's the signals guy.
You need to grow it, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's that structure is critical to have a well-working machine. And when I look at Adelaide, I know George is going to serve us well, and the other states, it's going to look very similar. After we complete the state chapter construction, we can then move on to chapters at universities, chapters at high schools, which we've gotten a lot of requests for. When I went to the US, they just said, go slow.
Yeah.
Take it easy. There's a lot of people that are going to spring up now that Charlie's passed, and they're going to feel this well of emotion. The Bible warns about this. It says, for the farmer, when he spreads the seed on the pathway, it may spring up very quick, but when the sun comes, it gets very hot, withers and dies, because the worries of life come along, and people are like, oh, okay, they go back into their old habits. So they actively told me, Joel, in the US, we have 150,000 requests to start chapters in universities.
Wow.
And they said, we have to also follow this rule, because there's going to be a lot of people that fall off, or they're trying to get in under the guise of this reason or that. Just be careful. Don't push. You're only 4 years old. Turning Point Australia only started, 4 years ago. Take it easy. You're doing really well. Don't overexpand. Otherwise, you'll overstretch, and you'll drop the whole bundle of goods that you're carrying and the good stuff you're doing. You'll drop the ball. And so, so it's a very considered approach, and it's a stable place. And as you alluded to before, we need a home where we can know that our values, it's a safe space for Christians, for conservatives, for nationals, for people that want to see Australia, be what it used to be, where we really didn't have to worry about politics that much. It kind of handled itself. Yeah. That nostalgia you sort of feel around, the 90s or the early 2000s. That's really what we want to get back to. Not these culture wars where we're talking about what is a woman, and, people having their kids taken off them, and, we're being taxed, through the roof. To buy eggs, for God's sake, is just way too expensive. And, being able to go back to basics as a nation would be phenomenal, where we're all proud of this nation. We're proud to be Aussies, and when we're overseas, we're proud when we say we're Aussies, yeah. And they're like, oh, yeah, you guys are really laid back. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice to go back to, and where we can prosper, and, our kids can get a house, and, we're not worried about the safety of our kids walking home, or the car being hijacked or whatever. No-go zones in certain areas where there's some people that don't want to integrate. I mean, these are significant issues that I worry about. And so we have to apply ourselves. And if Turning Point is going to be a major hub from that, then people should go to our website, sign up, stay in touch. When your state director basically comes in, we're going to come in with a very considered approach so that we can fight the skirmishes that your state has, so that we can bind together, watch each other's back, and to have a family. That's what the churches used to be in Australia's history. And that's why it was so egregious during COVID that they did nothing, because they were the infrastructure. They were the major institution that made Australia great. And so the fact that they dropped the ball doesn't mean that, oh, well, it's gone. It means that, no, the pressure's got to go somewhere. Someone's going to have to step up and fill that void. Otherwise, someone else will. So
I think it's worth, just while we're on it, it's probably worth explaining to people who don't completely understand the difference between, say, political parties and, say, organisations like Turning Point on the machines that are playing the game to see change within a culture. I just think as best you can, maybe just like layman's terms, break it down to like, hey, this is the reason you need something like Turning Point. And then you've also got political parties who are doing their thing. Maybe explain it, what Charlie did over there and how it might be mirrored here, just as simple as you can for someone who's got no idea about politics. Because in Australia, it's a very small percentage of people who actually understand politics at all, right?
Yeah.
But we need all them to get involved and feel motivated and actually think like there's a purpose to doing it, because the future is bright, as PBD would say. Like if we get it right, we don't have to just run away and lose. So just touch on that maybe for the listener.
Well, let's boil it down. What are you complaining about in life? Think about it.
Yeah.
Is it you can't pay your rent? Is it the fact that your kid's not being taught the basics, math, science, English? They're coming out of school dumber. You have to re-educate them on what's going on. Is the fact that there's this pernicious ideology, the LGBT ideology? Not that you hate gay people. It's the fact that you would rather your kids learn about things they're meant to learn in school, what you pay taxes for. Maybe the police aren't doing their job. They're too busy running PR and saying that it's Pride Month.
Yeah.
If you're really upset about these things, the fact that there's potholes in your street and your councils aren't paying and sticking to roads, rates and rubbish, they're too busy building this statue or that and doing these woke sort of statements. If you don't like the fact these things aren't getting done, that's politicians. That's the people that write legislation. Those people get elected when you go and vote, and you have to do that vote once every 3 or 4 years. Now, the price of not being involved in politics means that you are going to be led by inferior men, whether you consent or not. So you might as well get engaged in it. What that looks like is what I offer through Turning Point. It's to educate you on who's punching you, why are they punching you, and how can you punch back politically. During COVID, that was quite a target-rich environment. And when it comes to breathing your values into politics, I try to educate people, well, what are your values? Let's work through it together. This is what I believe, if you like what I'm about. I'm a Christian conservative. I believe in the Australia First doctrine. I believe that we should be taking care of what's going on in Australia before we turn our gaze to the things going on around the world, the distractions. And I think that from a position of strength, if we're economically safe, if we're militarily strong, then we're in the best position possible to sort our own top 100 issues out. Now, Turning Point Australia, whether it's the journalism we do, the commentary we do, the political activism we do in providing resources, this helps people choose better politicians to vote for. This allows us to actually pick this politician over that one. It holds keeps the bastards honest, if I can be blunt, because these guys, there is a parasitic class of people in every country. You know who they are. We all know them in our own lives. They love to be managers.
Yeah.
They don't like to be people that bring value and put blood, sweat and tears into the work that they do. They get rich off taking a cut of what you do or being a manager. They enjoy meetings. I hate meetings.
Yeah.
Anyone, I think it was Thomas Sowell who said, anyone that loves meetings shouldn't be put in charge of anything important.
Yeah.
This is not how we are productive as a country. And so there is a class of people in there that have been, before the internet, just undisturbed, enjoying your taxes, your hard-earned taxes, not delivering any value, not doing the function of government. And because of the internet now, it's been a real game changer. It's been a black swan event, which has allowed us to say, these guys are actually rorting the system. They're corrupt. They're in bed with corporations. They're serving the voters last, and politicians are there to serve you. They're not listening to your emails. They avoid you in the street. They don't take your calls, and they're unreceptive to you. Politicians are like gloves. They will be filled with either their own values or someone else's. Now, that could be a special interest group because they're getting paid off to pass certain policies.
Or the lobbies are,
Or with what I do, I try to teach you guys how you can be that interest group.
Yeah.
Because that's how it's meant to be. I would be great if they just did their job already. But unfortunately, guys, we are led by majority cowards. There are some great ones, but there are mostly cowards. And they are basically there for sale. Now, my job is to help you to really light a fire under their butt and help them understand they will not be in that position of comfort if they don't start to give you a bundle of goods, lower taxes, government out of your life, a higher education when it comes to your kids, fixing the basics at a council level like roads, rates and rubbish, doing what their job is, for God's sake. You know, you don't go to a construction company expecting to be lectured about XYZ with the LGBT issues. When it comes to doing that, that is where the real value is that we do. That's why we get attacked, because we aren't taught these things in school, because a society that doesn't know these issues, how their government works, how this very complicated machine works, that's great for these bureaucrats. It's great for these politicians. They're laughing all the way to the bank. They stack the pension system so that their pensions are safe while yours aren't. They're too busy giving $1 billion to the US. Actually, sorry, I think, is that $1 trillion to the US in your super funds to actually invest in America rather than Australia? They're doing really well out of many different things in policy, not serving you. And so Turning Point exists because there is a inflection point we're at where people have had enough. They're either moving overseas, young people aren't staying here, they can't pay for the things that they need. My mum was one of 13 kids. My dad was one of 7 kids. You know, there was a time where it was a lot more affordable to have that many kids and raise them really well. And that is not where we're at right now. You know, my sister, her husband, you know, raising 3 kids, it's all hands on deck. It's 2 jobs each. It's not easy. And they're not living in the eastern suburbs, you know, they're not living in Kirribilli, you know, like they're living in an apartment. It's not easy. And there's a lot of families out there that are looking at the standard of living that their parents and grandparents had, and they don't see it's possible for them. So they're moving overseas. This is how you kill a nation. This is how the politicians aren't serving the people that made Australia great, that actually paid hundreds of years of taxes so that their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids could have a great life. And so this is where we are at. We are at an inflection point where it's like, well, are you going to keep Australia up for sale to the highest bidder, or are you going to apply yourself and get it back on track?
Do you think these politicians think long-term evilly, if that's a word? Or do you think they think short-term for themselves? Like, what I mean is, without getting too conspiratorial, do you think that many of them operate in the sphere of, you know, is Dan Andrews operating in a sphere because he's deeply in relationship or embedded with some Chinese business guy, or you could swap out any politician for that? Or do you think they're just, you know what, it's just the weakness of men. They get in a spot, they got their blinkers on, they're in a bubble, they're going to do what's best for them and forget you, do their term, maybe get a comfy job later in some private sector? Or do you think there's a bigger agenda, the spiritual agenda that people talk about, or is it both?
It's both. No, it is both. You've nailed it. So the thing is, it's about incentives. You know, we're not even showing up to the fight. You know, we've got an opponent with a lot of money, a lot of incentives. It's like, no, you'll keep your job if you do what the party says you should do, rather than being loyal to your values. A lot of great people, legends, they rock up to Canberra. They've got all, you know, they're starry-eyed.
Yeah.
They've got all these ideas about their Christian values, but it's only convenient. When it's only convenient, they apply those values.
Right.
When it's only convenient they keep their job, they stick to those values. Turning Point's not like that. It's not about that. It's about, we're here to get a job done. That means getting our values done, because our values are for prosperity for Australians. It's not for the prosperity of one individual, for Joel Jammal. It is not for me. I can assure you that. And that's why you won't see me on the ballot. Politicians, yes, they are offered incentives, and a lot of those incentives do go hand in hand with UN charters, you know, party policies with regards to mass immigration, which is going to keep GDP high. It's a bit of a drug when it comes to, in economic terms, It's a sugar hit. Yeah. And if you oppose that, well, you're going against party policy. It means that we're not going to be able to show voters that we have unlimited growth as a nation.
Yeah.
But the problem is what they don't consider is the cultural impacts. Are these people integrating? Are they rorting the system? Are they taking money out of NDIS through corrupt means? I mean, these are the things where politicians, they simply don't care. They've got a good house. They've got a pension plan. Their kids are doing well for themselves. You have to make them care by applying yourself in politics.
With the young, you shared at a group last night with some young men and women there, which was really encouraging, wasn't it? To see their hunger for to see the country better. I heard someone sharing the other day, I can't remember her name, but it was on a podcast, and reference to the fact back in what happened in I think it was 71 or 70, I think it was Nixon, when they sort of stopped the draft for Americans. And then what it kind of did was it subconsciously changed this like patriotic conscience in a man, right, to like be born and go, oh, at some point I will defend my country. And when that was taken, and some people celebrate, they still might now, right, celebrate the choice to do it. But something happened when they did that. And within the same 12 months, this is another video, but, Roe v. Wade was passed. And so you had a man's call to patriotically, and you can align that biblically as well, grow up, no, I'm going to defend my country. It's actually part of who I am as a fabric of a man. And then 12 months later, also doing the same to women, subconsciously, like, my role isn't to just raise kids and stuff like this. Is actually a choice. And did you feel, or do you see walking around that something actually has to change with the younger ones coming through as well? Like, I look at it and go, I feel like no one's patriotic. I don't know if it's just Australia. We're not as, it's definitely coming back. It's growing. People like Sam Bamford, right? And I'm watching him and he loves the country and it's amazing. But there's a real lack, I feel like, in my generation and younger of people who actually love their country. Like, you don't have to love politics, but I think it's actually important to love your country because politics is killing it. Yeah. Do you see that lack in
I
young?
do. Yeah. No, very much so. Look, if you want to see the model of how to make a country patriotic, you've got to make it homogenous.
Right.
So whether that's, religiously homogenous, all the same, you've got to make some kind of cohesion. You've got to unify people through values. It might be ethnicity. It might be religious means. It might be a bag of values. It might be shared bloodshed. I think Israel, whatever you think about the country, they've got the formula right in terms of they're young people. They have to do 2 years of mandatory service in whatever form that looks like. That really invests them into it. And it also, if I can say so myself, it allows them to actually understand physically what their bodies are capable of. A lot of people, they just go through life. They never realize what they can do physically, and that's a real tragedy. The Stoics talk about this. It actually allows you to be more rooted in reality. So with you, for example, we were in the car yesterday talking about this hilariously. I'm like, bro, there's about 4 different reasons why you didn't comply with COVID. It's obvious to me because I meet people all the time. You're in construction, so you're working with your hands quite often. That means you have to learn how to negotiate. You understand manipulation tactics through negotiation. You're a dude that served in the Navy, so you're someone that has done a lot of that physicality as well there. And there are a couple of other things as well, but the point is when you work with your hands, like farmers, that's what a lot of the Anzacs were like. They were farmers back then. They were very good riding the horses, when it comes to the light horsemen, 800 cavalry that captured Jerusalem. I'm really proud as an Aussie. I'm proud to see that because it's like those dudes were a bunch of farmers, but they were so rooted in reality from working with their hands and made of tough as nails. It just shows you that those guys can go on and do amazing conquests. And I think with COVID, we've become such a tertiary country, so devoid of being rooted in reality, working with our hands, and we've just become so weak. And this is what the data shows in health. Barbara O'Neill talks about this. This is what the data shows with regards to what's happening with men, the products we consume, the toxicity in the products, the fact that we're exposed to so much plastic. This is actually making men into women. And the same with women. Women are becoming more attracted to soy men, weak men. We see this with regards to a lot of contraceptives. They're having an effect on women's menstrual cycles and what they're attracted to. There are a number of studies that detail this a lot. This is making our nations weaker and less cohesive, and add on top of the fact that kids can't afford a house. Why would they defend a country where they can't even, afford a block of land? This is the fall of Rome sort of stuff we're talking about. The Romans you'd be given Roman citizenship even if you were an outsider, if you served a set amount of years in the Legionnaire, and you would go on these conquests, and if you survived, you got awarded a number of accolades, but also you were allowed to buy land. The reason, part of the many reasons why Rome collapsed was these armies started to become mercenary armies. The soldiers that did serve in them, often when they got back to Rome, they found that their villa had been bought by some hierarch, aristocrat, or whatever, and also they weren't able to buy and own land there anymore, so why did they fight? And you don't want to mess around, especially with the young men that can't actually, get into the housing market or whatever. It'll reach a boiling point, and they'll turn to violent means, gangs, whatever. So this is what happened with Rome. They started to outsource their defense to mercenaries, who eventually held Rome up for ransom.
Yeah.
And so because they could. Whereas you need a buy-in from young people that they own this country, part of it, and their little slice, have their wife and their kids and their home and their friends and family and community. These are the bricks that make a country strong.
What do you as we sort of come to a close, I want to leave people with a little bit of hope, right?
Why not?
And because I also know that you have high hopes for this country. You do. Like you said, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't be fighting if you think was a loss. I know you don't often shoot at something unless you know you're going to hit the target. You're measured, which is another kind of, shout out to the fact that you're leading Turning Point here in Australia. That's a great organisation to get behind. But where do you see, if we get it right, what can this country be in all its glory, right? Like, what's the best version you see in Australia in 20 years, right? If we get the next couple elections right, or if with all the noise aside, if we get it right, which is going to involve men and women doing their part, not just Joel and not just you, it's going to involve everyone actually doing their part. What do you see this great southern land of Australia? What could it be?
Mate, we could be like feeding all of Asia. We could be an absolute military superpower. The amount of costs that we have that could be cut is enormous, but the amount of value we could get out of exploiting the resources we have in this nation, we truly are blessed. We need to wrestle the controls off the corporations who aren't paying their fair share of taxes at all, and they're not paying royalties to our government in the way that they should be. And we could, it's a socialist concept, but I'm no socialist. The amount of resources we have here, we genuinely could have, free healthcare to a point, and in a big way. And we could actually be a true leader in Asia in the truest sense of the word. We've been that in the past when we were 5 million people. We kicked the Germans out in the World War I with our Tier 2 Navy, which we ordered. It came in 5 years. And we totally kicked the Germans out of the Pacific. You wouldn't even know that they were there at the time. It was that quick. We've done it before. Australia was great once upon a time, but it was made of tougher stuff. People applied themselves. And it's going to take an army, all of us, to apply ourselves to do that. We could be economically prosperous in a way that, our kids do have as good a life or better than our parents and grandparents. But also, we've got to stay rooted in reality. Meaning working with our hands, applying ourselves militarily. But I do see Australia being an absolute nirvana in the world. There's no reason we can't. We've got a large moat around us. We can control who comes to Australia. We've just got to kick out these politicians, because leadership is the number one thing missing in Australia. We have all the ingredients for a great country. We're a tier 1 country. We're not a tier 1 country at the moment. And we could really do that. But the world doesn't respect us. We've got this economy the size of Russia, but we could be better. It's not being spent very well. There's a lot of wastage. And we're too busy serving other people's interests rather than our own. And until we actually wrestle back the leadership positions in this government, in the bureaucracy, away from the corporations and the other interest groups and other nations, we're not going to get anywhere. So this is where our task lies for our kids, for our family in a local sense, in our council areas, in our state, in our nation, and then in our position in the Pacific. We've got to work from the bottom up to breathe our values into politics, whether it's in our own lives or in the world.
Yeah, great. I've loved hearing a little bit about who made you, who you are. For a lot of people watching, you might have been through something similar during COVID, and these things, tough times often make men and women who they are. As we finish, man, any little bit of advice you could give to anybody, because we don't have time to go through it right now, but there's the 4 parts you talked about, like today at lunch, right? Commentary, journalism, activism, and whatever the other one was, right? Anyone out there who wants to start using their voice to do something to help, but doesn't know how to start, doesn't know what it takes, a little bit of advice to encourage maybe men to grow a pair or have a spine, or, hey, what do you want to leave behind? A little bit of advice as we close out.
Well, what do you want? What do you want out of life? What is your 5-year plan? What would be the worst case scenario in your life, and what is the best case scenario over the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you want to be? What is it that makes you happy? Then do that for 10 years, for 20 years, for 30 years. This is what Jordan Peterson does with his program online, where you can engage in that. What do you actually want? And you know what you need to be doing to make that happen. Should I really be doing, a line of cocaine every weekend with the mate? Should I really be smashing a bottle of whiskey every Saturday night? These are the things that, everything in moderation. The drugs are a big no-no for me, to be clear.
Yeah.
But when it comes to what you want out of your life that will give you that long-term happiness, you're going to want a wife and kids. You're going to want to have a home, because when the partying years are done, what are you going to have left in 15 years from the time you're 18? You're going to look around and you're going to be like, well, why am I still on this earth? What is going to outlast me after I'm done here? Yep. And I see that in getting your own life sorted, getting your finances sorted, getting yourself sorted spiritually, understanding that there is a God. If you turn your life over to Him, to believing in Jesus Christ, it'll actually be an incredibly liberating thing. Yep. You will go further in life with your finances, with your relationships. You'll have a peace that you will not understand. The fruit of the Spirit is love, peace, patience, forbearance, and kindness. You will be a magnet to people that will all want to understand, what is it this person, what is it that makes them tick? That is what I think everyone needs to look at in their own lives and think, what do I want? Now, how does that manifest itself in politics? Well, eventually what happens is you do get your life together.
You start to see the problem.
Yeah. You start to get your life together with your relationship. You find a great partner in life, a soulmate, partner in crime,
yep,
business partner. It's a great way to start an ethos in your business. You become economically successful so that you can raise your kids in the way that works well. And don't wait with kids, have kids.
Yep.
You will step up once you have the kids. You will actually find a way. You'll get over your own blockages. There's no perfect time to have kids. And you'll start to imbue your kids with those values. Then you might extend a toe into the world while this is going on and join a great church, and you should do that immediately, and form a great connection. You might join a Turning Point chapter. You might connect with us as your family, or
yep,
any other group, a political party. All of these things in tandem. And then eventually that forms one of the critical bricks in the state, because you formed an amazing community, a rock solid community like what Australia used to be. And, you get all the states together, you've got a nation, you've got a commonwealth where we can all enjoy and reap the benefits of this great nation that our forefathers, fought and bled for and died for. And next thing you know, Australia is on the map as like, this is the place where we aren't led by cowards. We know who to vote for. We know what we stand for. We're a Christian country that has been around for almost 300 years, and we are not going to bow to any foreign power. And we know how to plan economically, militarily, strategically, and we have other like-minded countries that also have our back that have got their stuff together as well. This is only at that point can we really sort of look at the world and start to engage and really help Africa come out of poverty and Asia come out of poverty. But we've got a lot of work to do here. The mission is there. And if we can secure our own mask per se on this flight, then we can help the person next to us.
It's great advice and great insight to who you are. I want to thank you for being here.
Not at all.
It's been good getting to know a little bit of the ins and outs of what makes you who you are, and we'll continue to support you. I'll put all the links, obviously, as you do, to Turning Point Australia, to your channels. Those of you watching who want to know a little bit more about him, look at the links in the channel, go onto their website, get to know who Turning Point is. Joel, absolute pleasure. Look forward to doing it again.
Not at all. Thanks for your time. Cheers.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that discussion, the best thing you can do to help a channel like this, a new conservative truth-telling channel, is to subscribe. Not even asking for money. Just subscribe. It's the easiest way for me to show YouTube, hey, people are watching, and help push this message out there. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you again on the next one. Bye-bye.